Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Observations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, the still as yet undefined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, the best fan community on the internet. That is right. And first of all, let me all welcome you to 2023. I, for one, am hugely optimistic about the coming year. I think there's a lot coming down the pike that we have much to be excited about, and I wanted to talk about that. But first, I wanted to give a shout out, well, not a shout out, but maybe a bit of a remembrance to Ben Rayner, who was a fan of many of the channels that I have been on. He was an active participant on the John Campea channel, interactive fan, supportive fan. We lost him. He passed away a couple days ago, and I wanted to give an acknowledgement to Ben. He was one of the best of us. He was a true fan. He was a kind person. I never had the opportunity to meet him personally, but his loss will be felt. And a shout out to his friends and family and those that remember him. Anyway, 2023, looking ahead, looking forward. Now, I had a pretty interesting experience a couple of days ago. I was afforded the opportunity to spend most of a day with, let's call this person one of the highest ranking people in the studio system. And this individual is a admiral level nerd. He's also an incredibly powerful individual that has worked his way up through the industry, and I had never met this person face to face, but I was blown away by their knowledge, and their knowledge was deep. It ran deep, deep, deep into comics, into fiction, into all sorts of things. And this person is a true, let me tell you, when you go up the hierarchy of Hollywood, this person's at the top. At a top. There's many peaks across, and they all look at each other when the flames of fandom Gondor are lit, or Studio Gondor, whatever you want to call it. When they light those flames and the flames light on the mountaintops, they are one of those people that are on the mountaintops. Their flame burns to call Rohan to arms. So what was really interesting, though, we had a terrific conversation about what is coming in terms of things that we're going to see and how the industry is changing. This person was absolutely optimistic. By the way, one of the things that this person said is that don't bet against James Mangold, that we should all be excited for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And for this person to say it, and I believe them because of the other things they told me surrounding this comment, And I didn't even bring this up, but somebody else did, and the answer was, oh yes. Which also got me thinking. A couple of things got me thinking, over the last couple of days, and an impromptu stream I did. But I kind of wanted to ask myself, maybe it was because I watched Jerry Maguire recently. And maybe it's because I have become, let's call it annoyed. I've become annoyed with many of the fandoms that I've participated and have been participating in literally for decades. And I mean, to quote or to paraphrase Yoda, the idea that anger has led to hate and hate leads to suffering for us all would not be too far away from what I was thinking about. Now, as many of you who watch this channel know, my whole brand is positivity. I always say that we, as fans, we live in a time an embarrassment of riches are coming our way. Whether I'm getting shows that I love, like For All Mankind, or I'm getting shows that I love, like Picard Season 3, which is, I don't know if anyone would be surprised to know that I actually got to see the finished version of all 10 episodes of Picard Season 3. And I want to give a special shout out to actor Todd Stashwick, who plays, I'm not going to tell you who he plays, but a character named Liam Shaw. Now, I made a tweet the other day about his performance, and we're doing on the Inglorious Treksperts podcast our 101 favorite Star Trek characters. And one of our philosophical points is that Star Trek characters they have to live, history has to show that they've endured before we can put them on any list. And I was thinking, someone's like, well, Rob, what about Star Trek characters since 2017? And I'm like, well, I don't have an answer for that. But I do have one answer that I can say. Todd Stashwick as Liam Shaw is going to be a fan favorite character. You're going to love him. You're going to hate him. You'll love him again. But shout out to that actor, because, man, does he deliver an Emmy caliber performance in his role in Picard Season 3. All of these things got me thinking. This high-ranking industry person, told me something very interesting that I had never heard before. This person used the term fraudulent when talking about many of the creators this person has to deal with in the industry. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And basically they were talking about the fact that there was the creators, especially a lot of the creators at the top that are controlling many of our favorite IPs, they were lamenting that the work isn't being done. Sort of. That there are a lot of very talented creators that are skating by sometimes, and that the work and the due diligence that should be done by creators that are in very rarefied places of power perhaps are not, the work is not being done to the caliber that it should, especially with the money being spent. I thought that was very interesting, and I never heard the term fraudulent creator before. But it really made me think about the fact that a lot of the IP that we've seen some really interesting things over the last year. I'm a huge fan of Shane Black. I've been a fan of Shane Black all the way back since I saw him in Predator. But when I was working at Warner Brothers as a young whippersnapper, and I remember when The Last Boy Scout script came out, and it was a big deal in Hollywood. It was the hottest read in town. And it was really the first screenplay. It sold, if memory serves, for $1.75 million. Everybody in town read this script. And Shane Black had a really interesting way of writing to address the reader directly. And of course, people tried to rip it off. And it didn't work. Only Shane Black could get away with it. But the thing about Shane Black is I was a big fan of him as a creator. And whether it was writing Lethal Weapon, whether it was writing Last Boy Scout or Long Kiss Goodnight or anything, I was a fan of Shane Black's. And as a filmmaker, when he finally transitioned over to become a director and made Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and made The Nice Guys and directed Iron Man 3. Still, big fan of Shane Black's. Now, I think that he stumbled as a director and as a writer on The Predator. But one of the great things when I say, hey, there's always, we're living in an embarrassment of riches, and just because one movie wasn't good doesn't mean the next movie or series in that franchise isn't going to be good. As a James Bond fan, I have seen a franchise that I love that is wildly varying in quality. You can go from On Honor Her Majesty's Secret Service to Diamonds Are Forever. Now, there's lots of people that love Diamonds Are Forever, and as a kid, I kind of did too. But if you look at the pantheon of the Bond franchise, it's wildly, the quality is wildly up and down. But I still love the Bond franchise. Now, I really did not like Shane Black's The Predator. But it didn't make me want to take up arms against Shane Black as a creator on social media. And surprisingly, we got Prey on Hulu this past year. And, I would look at Prey as an example of how a franchise in one movie can be brought back on track. And what an interesting take. First of all, the fact that they even greenlit that movie in the first place was kind of miraculous. And you can use it as an example to show that there are people at the studio level and creatives that can revive an IP that you might have think has become moribund. And that alone, now that's just one example. I would also say, while I didn't think it was as successful, the Hellraiser reboot on Hulu was pretty good. I didn't think it was great. It wasn't up to the original Hellraiser level, and I did think some of the ideas indeed were a bit muddled, but I enjoyed it. I didn't go, well, that fucking sucked. So Hulu was responsible for the revitalization of two franchises, I thought. Both the Predator franchise and the Hellraiser franchise. That would have not been on my 2022 bingo card. But I'm really glad that it happened. And I'll tell you, I don't know if they'll ever make another Predator movie, even in that universe. I mean, we had mused on the John Campea show that maybe they could do Predator movies in various different. I was saying, as you know, I've always said that nothing can't be made better by the proper application of ninjas. I feel the same way about samurai warriors, and I would love to see the Predator or a Predator or Predators against an army of samurai during the Tokugawa shogunate era, feudal Japan. Bring that shit on, son. I will watch it. Go shoot it in Japan, in Japanese, with a Japanese director. The fact is, there's a lot of bright spots that we as fans are seeing happen. Now, against my better judgment, I would say that Prodigy, the animated series Prodigy, has had a pretty good year. I was surprised by that, and I'm perfectly willing to give credit where credit is due. Now, I will say this, animated Star Trek is really not what I'm looking for, but if it's good, I can say that I think Prodigy is a worthy addition to the Star Trek franchise. And when I say, I have been suffering the slings and arrows of my people, my Star Trek fans. I mean, I'm old school, bro. I mean, you're not going to find a more dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fan that has actually parlayed his fandom into, on the periphery, of course, but professional. I had some professional dealings with the franchise. I was a Star Trek consultant for Viacom licensing in the 90s. I worked on the Star Trek Experience for 2 years. It was in Las Vegas. Of course, I made Free Enterprise, which I wrote and directed, that stars William Shatner. And, of course, I worked on the Star Trek Blu-rays, for doing documentaries for 3 years for both TNG and Enterprise. And at the time, I mean, we had two lawyers from Paramount and CBS given to us. So that was good. But Star Trek is my franchise. But, man, have I put my neck on the line as a fan about Star Trek Picard Season 3. Look, all I can say to people that are worried about Star Trek Picard Season 3 is, after having watched it yet a third time, I do believe it's the finest Star Trek in decades. The storyline itself, while it interweaves a lot of familiar themes throughout the Star Trek franchise over the last, well, it's now going to be 57 years old. It does. And people are going to say, well, this is just like, but I would say this, the structure of the 10 episodes and the writing and the storytelling and the dialogue, the writing shines. And it's like everything. It's not perfect, but it is I think, beautiful return to form for the Star Trek franchise. And it is, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it is like a 10-hour Star Trek The Next Generation movie. And it becomes, when it's over, you will say, that is the best Star Trek The Next Generation movie. Hell, I think I know why they have to call it Picard Season 3, but I would have called it Star Trek The Next Generation Requiem. There's very little about it that I don't love. And I think it's an extraordinary show. And like Prey, and like, well, to a certain extent, Hellraiser, I think it's a return to form for the franchise. And it proves that one great entry can restore the luster to something. And people say, well, it doesn't repair the damage of Discovery and Picard seasons 1 and 2. I agree. Look, my hatred of Star Trek Discovery is well documented. Their dunder-headed portrayal of the 31st century is one of the most unimaginative and ridiculously illogical portrayals of what humanity will be like 1,000 years in the future. And certainly about the Federation and how they've, an energy crisis, dilithium, like, please. Hate it. Picard Season 3. And as I said, don't believe the Bobster here. You don't have to believe me. Watch it yourself. And I'm hoping the same will be true for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I don't know anything about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny other than one person in the know told me it's good. It's really good. But here's another thing that got me thinking about fandom. What do we want? What do we as fans, what kind of a world do we want to live in? Our hatred, we are allowing our hatred to consume us. Now, here's the thing. I believe in this day and age, there is no better time to hold fraudulent creators accountable for their work. Look, love it or hate it, you have to look at something like Tony Gilroy's Andor. And, by the way, in the industry, Tony Gilroy is not an easy person to deal with. But what Tony Gilroy is not is a fraudulent creator. When he is working on Andor, man, he is all in. And his team is all in. And it's all up on that screen. It might not be your thing, but I think anybody can recognize that Andor has a vision behind it. It's incredibly well executed, and they brought something unique to the Star Wars pantheon that needs to be, if nothing else, respected. And here's what I think fandom is missing, and this is what I wanted to talk about at this first day of 2023. We now have access, direct access, to creators. We do have the ears of people at the studio. The fact that I make a tweet about Todd Stashwick's performance in Star Trek Picard, and I get a phone call saying, take it down. Now, I'm perfectly willing to do that, but my question is, why isn't the studio promoting Todd Stashwick's performance? I understand we're 47 days away from Picard Season 3, but it's amazing that I think they've got lightning in a bottle. Actually, not lightning in a bottle, because showrunner Terry Matalas is also not a fraudulent creator. And there is so much love and attention to detail put up on the screen in Picard Season 3. And it's very difficult to try and to make people understand how different it feels. Now, at first you're going to say, oh, there's people we recognize before, and oh, there's a character they brought over. And yes, they have to acknowledge, well, Picard Seasons 1 and 2 did Picard Season 3 goes a long way to it's not a repair job by any means, but you'll be astonished at how far it actually goes. Again, why? Because Terry Metalis and he was given free reign to put his own team together to make what he wanted. Now, the thing about someone like, let's go back to James Mangold. When has James Mangold let the fan community down? If you look at his career, whether he's done Walk the Line, whether he's done Logan, whether he's done 310 to Yuma, whether he's done Ford v Ferrari, I'm a huge fan of Identity. Go back to Copland. James Mangold is a creator that has earned fan respect and has earned our belief that he will create something good. Because seldom has he not. Even in movies that perhaps, like I don't think necessarily The Wolverine was nearly as successful as Logan. I thought the third act really suffered, but there's a lot in it. It's certainly not embarrassment. I quite enjoy Wolverine, The Wolverine, and we got a hell of a hot toy out of it. Wolverine in a black suit. Can put him right next to John Wick on your shelf. But I think as fans, we have a really great opportunity when you hear someone like Henry Cavill being involved in Warhammer 40K. Sorry about that. That alarm will go off soon. This is an amazing experience. This is an amazing thing that's happened. I understand there's a lot of people that are going to be upset with what James Gunn's doing with the DC EU, turning it into the DC universe and all this, but James Gunn, again, is a fan-turned-professional that has seldom let us down. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be ever vigilant, and I'm not saying we shouldn't watch what James Gunn does like a hawk. And when or if he delivers something that is not to your liking, by all means, be critical. But I would ask everybody, as something we should do as a fan community moving forward in 2023, we need to do better with our criticism. We need to present cogent reasons why we hate something and dial back the hatred is beginning to blur the vision that all of us have. And I'm seeing it, hell, the 6-scale hot toy community is being consumed by internecine fighting and I mean, we're talking about action figures. And man, let me just tell you, a company like X06 that has the Star Trek license, they're making Star Trek figures. It's an incredible company. There's another company that many people might not be aware of, Jazz Inc. Dioramas in the Netherlands. These were people, father-son team, Joost, over there in the Netherlands. He and his, basically it's a family business. They started making 6-scale dioramas at first for Star Wars characters. They were doing like a Death Star. They're basically building sets for your 6-scale action figures and 12-scale action figures. I have a Millennium Falcon cockpit that fits 4 Hot Toys figures. I recently received, and you can see it on the last week's Weekly Hero, the Weekly Hero we dropped during the vacation between Christmas and New Year's, where I open up their 6-scale 1966 Batmobile. My whole life, I've wanted a 6, because my first action figure toys were the early 70s G.I. Joes, which were 12-inch figures. Then it went back to 8-inch. I mean, I feel like in my life what happened was, as a child, I began with 12-inch figures. I went to 8-inch Mego figures. Then I was in 3 3/4-inch figures. And that's where we all lived for decades. Not until like Kenner or Hasbro brought back Star Wars 6-scale figures in the late 90s. I'm like, oh, I'm getting back into 6-scale. And now as a middle-aged man with one foot in the fucking grave, I get a 6-scale 66 Batmobile for my Burt Ward and Adam West Hot Toys figures that I left in a box for 7 years because Hot Toys didn't make the Batmobile, and they're making it. And Jazz Inc. already made the Justice Mobile from Justice League and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. They're making the Batman Forever Batmobile. They're making the Batman Batmobile with smoke that comes out of it and an engine that lights up. And I have on order a 6th scale snow speeder from The Empire Strikes Back and the Batwing to go with my 1989 Batmobile. And here's the coolest thing about Jazz Inc. And there's a lesson to be had here, kids. So Jazz Inc. was a unlicensed company that eventually ran afoul of Warner Brothers. They were able to hammer out, probably it was a perfect storm of events that allowed this to happen. They were able to hammer out a licensing deal with Warner Brothers. So all of their Batman stuff is officially licensed merch. These are fans that crossed over to becoming true industry professionals, making some of the best merch I've ever seen. Merch that other companies could just not afford to make. But Jazz Inc. is still a mom and pop organization. So, and they delivered, man. That 66 Batmobile, I'm telling you, I almost wanted, I practically wept when I took it out of the box. It's kind of embarrassing to be honest. If you watch the video that's on last week's Weekly Hero, where I unbox it, and it's just, I'm a little overcome. And to be honest, I'm not beyond, excessive displays of emotion, if you know what I mean. So, anyway, I mean, all I can say is, here is what I would like to see my fan manifesto, my fan mission statement. At least it is personally for me. And it's just simple. We need to make our fan communities better, stronger, smarter, more resilient, and I used to say this to Mark Altman. I used to say, when we made free enterprise back in the 90s, I said, dude, I've always believed that as a fan, we should at some point in our lives also become creators and give something back to the community. And Mark would always say, oh, hogwash. And the funny thing about Mark was, I met him because he was already writing these really long, extensive articles in Cinefantastic magazine that would recap each season of Next Generation. And then with Ed Gross, they've been writing these incredible, over the last 4 or 5 years, these great oral histories. The last book they put out was about John Wick. They did a book about Buffy. They did a 2-volume set about the history of Star Trek. They did an oral history of Star Wars. And Mark has been a filmmaker and a TV producer for the last 25 years. So he did become that guy, where he's given back. And I would say this platform right now, YouTube is a great platform. TikTok, obviously, I think it's a Chinese psyop and everybody should get off it, but I understand it's vibrant. Maybe Instagram, Reels, whatever. There is more time and more ways, or more, you have a bigger ability to create now than ever before. And I love it when people write into either myself or John Campea and talk about the fact that they have either become creators on YouTube or they've picked up. I mean, on this channel, we put on a film festival, and you can see the results of that film festival during COVID. It's at the playlist at the top of the page, so check that out. We are going to be self-publishing. We are going to run a short story contest that's going to be launched on February 15th on this channel. It is going to be called the Imagination Connoisseurs. It's going to be the title of an anthology. We're going to publish it in 3 different forms: digitally in softcover and a really beautiful slipcased hardcover version. We are going to have to charge money, an entry fee that might be a little steep for some people, but that's because we have a professional editor who's going to be looking at and we're going to, obviously, your stories will be edited. We're going to have you work with that editor as well. But then we're going to crowdfund, because I can't afford to publish a hardcover book, but we're going to crowdfund that book in various tiers, and I want to have it out. The goal is to have it out by, no, not the goal. We will have it out by holiday of next year, available for Christmas. But the premise behind the book is, what is an imagination connoisseur? Define it. So the book is going to be called The Imagination Connoisseurs. We're looking for short stories between 5,000 and 10,000 words. It can be anything. You can write anything you want. But the overarching idea behind it is, you can write a story about what does it mean to be an imagination connoisseur. You can write a story about what's it like to live the life of an imagination connoisseur. You could write a story that appeals to imagination connoisseurs, sci-fi, fantasy, horror. And to be clear, we would be in partnership on these stories. We would own the rights together for a few years. Like, what if you write a story, we publish it, and somebody wants to make a movie? Well, we want to be in on that. So we haven't figured out, I haven't got back on the legalities of this, but probably for 2 or 3 years after the book, or 3 or 4 years, I don't know, we would co-own your stories, but then the copyright reverts back to you. So that's how that works. Those are the broad strokes. We're going to do that this year. I am on this channel. I'm going to have more interviews with creators talking about the business of creation. And to do more, as many people know, I do the Designing Hollywood podcast. I've been afforded the great opportunity by Marilyn Vance and Martika Ibarra to interview over the last couple of years some Academy Award-winning costume designers. We're going to be broadening that and talking to writers and directors and actors in the Designing Hollywood podcast. I'm really excited about that because it's been something I've been doing now for a long time, and I'd like to get some more views. But the manifesto of this channel is going to be, we must elevate fandom. We must elevate the fan discourse. They are listening to us, but I want them to hear a smarter, wiser, more insightful voice than they've been getting. And I want to have that happen because they are listening. But they don't listen to the noise. They listen to the voices that present something that is worth listening to. I also would like to see less vitriol in the fan community between us. We're here, man. We are living in an age of wonder. We're also living in the world of fraudulent creators who have access to corporate-run IP. We have to absolutely continue to be ever vigilant and always express our discontent. The Timeless Children sucked. Are we ever going to get a retcon? I don't know. But that deserves, because I think something like that deserves to be ridiculed, mocked, and derided. But the thing is, our ridicule, mocking, derision needs to be presented much more effectively. Hate is consuming every aspect. Hate and a lack of respect is consuming every aspect of our culture. It's getting to the point where people are going to start, I don't know what they're going to do, but it ain't good. The fact is, we as fans, we know better, but it's our presentation that isn't so great. And so my fan manifesto, my fan mission statement is, as a fan, do better. Promote creation. Promote fan creation. After all, this very high-ranking, this admiral level geek that I met, that is in a rarefied, very powerful position in Hollywood, was incredibly inspiring to speak with, because there are people at the very highest levels that are listening and that want to create the things that we are going to love into 2023, 2024, and beyond. I think we are getting more science fiction, fantasy, and horror than ever before. Much of it is terrific. A lot of it isn't so terrific. And there are a lot of industries. Look, to be honest, I think, as I've said before, great stories and great characters. Well, actually, I would start with great characters first. Great characters and great stories must come before agendas, universes, any of that. Great stories have their message built into them. Great stories don't tell you what to think. Great stories give you things to think about. And that is a very different thing. Never put your characters and stories before your universe. Never put your characters and stories before your profit margins either. Great stories and great characters will always win out. You can't lose. And no one knows that better than fans. But we as fans, we must do better. We must make our voices more refined, smarter, less vitriolic. We need to talk the talk and walk the walk. And I would also encourage this. Any creators out there, whatever, if you've ever wanted to create something, there's never been a better time. Now we have AI-assisted tools. God help us. Yes, our AI overlords are here, and a lot of people are going to be put out of business. But you know what? There are ways that people are going to start using this material, and it's going to be fantastic. So I would say to all fans, in 2023, this could be our watershed year. This could be a year, and there is, as they said in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, dice are rolling, and we should all be a part of the coming revolution, whether it's in gaming, comics, television or streaming, movies, action figures, what have you. We need to band together as a force for creation, a force for collaboration, a force to elevate the intellectual and emotional discourse that we as fans have always experienced in those IPs that we love. And I think now's the time. And hey, I don't know what shape this is going to take. That's up to you. But there's never been, as Nanclus said in Star Trek VI, although this is probably a bad example, in the director's cut, there's never been a better time. So that is my message to fandom on this morning of the first day of 2022. So let's all join together. Hey, let's do more collabs with one another. Let's share some ideas. Let's make some cool shit. And that's what I want to do. We live in a time where there's a lot of cool shit out there. Let's just make some cool shit. Let's do it individually. Let's do it together. I mean, this channel, I'd love to have more creators already. You see Leanna Creole and doing the ladies of the PGS. I've got Roberto Suarez and Alex Montano doing Que Pasa PGS, an all-Spanish show here on the channel. I want to do more of that. Pitch me a show. Give me ideas, Obviously, I will continue to be on the John Campea show. I think the John Campea show is the best produced entertainment punditry show on YouTube. I mean, obviously, it's a different show than my show, different op-ed show. I plan to up the game on this show very, very shortly. But anyway, I got a few letters, as people know, that I want to read on this channel. And it's something else that I had read once before, but I want to read it again. And I think this is exactly what I am talking about. This letter comes to me from Christopher Sherwood, who says, "Hi, Rob. Just a note to thank you and let you know how much you helped me in following through on my creative endeavor. I posted a link to the PGS Facebook group a while back, but never followed up, and wanted to make sure you knew that you were a big help in me finishing the Friday the 13th fan film I put out a few months ago. There were quite a few times throughout the course of filming that I didn't think I was going to get it finished. But your positivity and encouragement to be creative and to keep going really stuck with me. I'm glad I did. When I started, I planned on it just being for friends and family to watch, something I had to get out of my system, but I stuck with it. And by the time I was done, I felt comfortable enough to push it out there a little further. I expected maybe 300 to 350 views, and now it has over 2,600 views, with some positive feedback as well. It has been way better than I ever thought it would be, and I'm currently knee-deep in writing a sequel. All because I kept at it and didn't give up. That push to keep going came from creatives like you. Thanks again. If you haven't seen it and would like to check it out, I don't expect you to promote it on the show or even want that big of a stage, but your opinion on whether you think it's any good would be cool, though. Here is the link, and I'm going to put it in the live chat, and so you guys can check it out yourself. But this is the kind of thing that I want to see done. So there is the link to the Friday the 13th movie. I enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of wit and verve in it, a lot of fun. And you know what? It's a beginning. Who knows where you're going to wind up? It doesn't have to be the greatest thing in the world. You started now on a journey. And if you enjoyed it, keep going. And I want to thank, obviously, this is a risk, man. And for Christopher to write in, it's nice to be thanked. And I'm not going to say it doesn't make me feel good, because it does. But I also think Christopher took a chance, man. He took a shot. He took his shot and made something. Didn't have to, but he did. So good on him. Have a few tips that have come in since I've started the show. I wanted to read those. Jeff Yerke and Mrs. Y. Obviously, Jeff Yerke is a long-term viewer of this channel, and I want to thank, it's always good to hear from Jeff. Jeff says, Happy New Year, Rob. Wishing you the best for 23. Mrs. Y and I want to endorse Doug Liman's The Recruit on Netflix. Exciting, funny, with good characters. We love it. Peace, brother. The Yerk Man. I actually love The Recruit. I didn't think it was genius, but Noah Centrino, I thought it was a really kind of a star-making role. I really enjoyed the show. It's a lot of fun. It's funny, but it's also fun. There's a lot of witticisms in there. And, of course, seeing Doug Liman do it, that was very cool. All the way back to Swingers. So I enjoyed it. Jason S. sends in a tip and says, show opening monologue in a stern but commanding voice. It was the dawn of the Post-Geek singularity, 10 years after the great streaming war that destroyed streaming media. The ROBSERVATIONS project was given dream form. Its goal to prevent another war by creating a place where people could work out their differences peacefully. It's a port of call, a home away from home for wanderers who seek out science fiction, horror, and fantasy. Humans and animals wrapped in 2,500,000 discs of spinning plastic, broadcasting their discussions throughout the night. It can be a dangerous place, but it is our last best hope for peace. This is a broadcasting from the last of the physical media stations. The year is 2038. The name of the place is the ROBSERVATORY. Man, maybe I can get Christopher Frank to do the music for that. Unless he might have passed away. You know what, Jason? That's pretty funny. I like that. That is, of course, pretty much a reference to Babylon 5. And if you have not watched it, it was on HBO Max. I hope it's not. Hasn't left, but it's pretty great. So watch Babylon 5 if you haven't already. Mexican Iron Man. Iron Man says, Happy New Year from your #1 Mexican fan. I'm in SoCal in January, and I'm coming to take you to lunch or dinner. Thank you for all you do for all of his fans. Mexican Iron Man, no one's done more for me in 2022 outside of this than you have. Now, inside of this, I actually have a modified Hot Toys die-cast Mexican Iron Man hot toy. So not only did you help me in my outside personal life a great deal, but you gave me I have a real Mexican Iron Man, which is incredible. So thank you for that. I very much appreciate that. Tom Jr. Jackson says, Happy New Year, Rob. You look good, sir. Well, thanks, buddy. And I'm sorry you asked me. I've just been crazy. I've kind of been off. As you've noticed, I've been offline. Let's make 2023 a super goof year, and I hope we can do something on my channel. Let's do it. Have a great one. Tom Jr. Jackson, of course, one of the cornerstone members of the Post-Geek Singularity. He's a moderator here, but he also coined the phrase, we are all goof people. And indeed, something fans should remember, when we're all taking ourselves too seriously, we've got to stop, take a breath, and remember, we are all goof people, and that's why we're great. Connor Stevens said, I picked up High Plains Drifter and Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and 4K and watched them for the first time ever. I loved both so much. 70s cinema just hits different. First of all, let's give a shout out to Kino Lorber, an unofficial sponsor of the station. Kino Lorber has been crushing it with their 4K releases, and both High Plains Drifter and Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 are incredible. And you forget, High Plains Drifter is one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies, but I hadn't seen it in a while until I watched that 4K disc. It's not your everyday movie. Clint, not a nice man in that movie, and pretty interesting to see. So, yes, that's definitely some good stuff. So yeah, it's been that was fun to go back and watch and be like, oh my God. Stubble McShave, our friend Stubble, all the way from Sweden, says, do you think Tom Hooper has gone to director jail for a few years after Cats? I haven't seen him doing anything else since then or having anything announced. I I think, yeah. I mean, you got to, but he's still a world-class director. I think Cats was sort of a monumental misfire, but that doesn't mean, look, one thing can derail your career, yes, but I think he's going to come back. I do think he's probably in director jail for a while. I think so. But he'll come back. Sub McShave says, how's Mike Bodden doing? Has he recovered from his accident? Kind of missing his presence on the channel. For those of you who don't know, my business partner, Mike Bodden, he basically fell off a ladder onto concrete when he was doing some housework. And he shattered his scapula. He was in bad shape. He's been recovering. He's been doing much, much better. Normally I speak with Mike every morning on the way into work. I haven't really talked to him over the last week, but I hope he had a good Christmas and all that. We will begin our daily conversations again tomorrow. He's going to be more of a presence on the channel. Now, speaking of creators, Lynn Hobday, our Brit in Japan. Lynn Hobday has been a creator for a long time. She's a singer. She's a musician. If memory serves, she even worked on, I want to say, Lynn, if I get this wrong, I know you worked on you worked on Shin Godzilla orchestrating music or something like that. I think. But I know you've worked in Japan for a very long time. By the way, can I just say, talk about great things that happen. Yesterday, as many of you know, I build model spaceships. One of my favorite fictional spaceships, probably number 3 of my, I have to say number 4 probably, of all time, is the Space Battleship Andromeda. The Earth Defense, the EDF Space Battleship Andromeda from Space Battleship Yamato, a.k.a. Star Blazers. It was introduced in the 2nd season of Space Battleship Yamato. And if you watch one of the great science fiction shows ever for me, in terms of just anime, was Star Blazers as a kid. But the remake beginning in 2012, it's Space Battleship Yamato 2199. Then there was Space Battleship Yamato 2202. And then 2205, which incredible. Well, so there's a Japanese company called Hachette, and they do part works, meaning they release model kits. Normally they were doing literally planes, trains, automobiles, but they delved into anime, and they made a Valkyrie. They made Roy Fokker's Valkyrie from Robotech, but they made 1/350th scale models of the Yamato, the Andromeda, and now the Kaguya. And what they are is Partworks models. If you don't know what they are, like every week they release a magazine and parts, and you have to build them. I can only get this in Japan, but I actually tracked down, thanks to Tim Eldred, animation superstar and the man who runs the Space Battleship Yamato website. I think it's called Our Star Blazers. He hooked me up with a Japanese buyer. So for the last 3 years, and these partworks aren't that expensive, but you couldn't get them outside the United States. You couldn't get them outside Japan. They made a 4.5-foot model of the Space Battleship Yamato. Well, actually, the Yamato's not 4.5 feet, but it's 350 scale. They're all the same scale, but the Andromeda is 4.5 feet. 2 days ago, I got all the rest of my parts that I've been waiting for 2 years. So now I have all 60, and I'm going to build my 4.5-foot Space Battleship Andromeda. It lights up. It has sound. You will be witnesses. So there you go. Pod Racing Palpatine has been a member of the channel for 22 months. Thank you, Pod Racing Palpatine. Wraith X7 says, Happy New Year, Rob. Have you watched Mark Scott Zakri's Space Command? Yes. Space Command, it has people like fan favorites like Doug Jones in it, of course. Space Command was a crowd-funded series. Again, this is what I mean. Mark Scott Zakri has worked on Star Trek. He's worked on many animated projects. I first found him in the early 80s. Mark Scott Zakri wrote a book, The Twilight Zone Companion. I swear to God, as a kid, I devoured this book because first of all, if you guys haven't, all of you, all imagination connoisseurs, when you go back and you educate yourself on, it's going to school, one of the greatest pieces, the greatest educations you could ever get is to watch all, I think there's 157 episodes of the original Twilight Zone. It's to go back and watch Rod Serling's Twilight Zone. Yes, it's black and white. I understand. It ran from 1959 to 1964. It's 5 seasons. The 4th season, they switched the format and made it hour long. Not very successful. Only a few episodes that are great in that season. But it was written by some of the great minds of the day. Not just Rod Serling, but some of the great fantasists of the day. People like Richard Matheson. People like Charles Beaumont. They even bought a French film, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, and put it on as a Twilight Zone episode. Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, along with Herc Hervey's Carnival of Souls, two of the most, they both kind of delve into the same story. But if you got to watch Twilight Zone. It's been remastered by CBS. If you want to be a true imagination connoisseur, and yes, I'm demanding of you now. I demand it. I demand all of you, and many people have seen the Twilight Zone, or many of you have just seen Simpsons parodies of Twilight Zone episodes, or the many parodies. Go back, first of all, to begin your journey, go back and get Mark Scott Zakri's book, The Twilight Zone Companion, and go through every episode of Twilight Zone with that book in hand. But don't read the entries. Read the entries after the episode airs. If you want a masterclass, it's like going back. Think of it as taking a college course on storytelling. And if you get the Blu-ray set, you can listen to the audio commentaries as well. It's incredible. But if you want to educate yourself on how storytelling works and how an economy, how in 22 minutes you can create characters and story, and if you want to see the mechanics of how storytelling works, go watch The Twilight Zone with Mark Scott Zakri's book, The Twilight Zone Companion, in hand. Watch the episodes. Watch them in order, of course, and you're going to see many classic things you might have seen or not seen but heard about, and then follow it up with read the chapters. Let's see, what else do we have? Mundane Matt sends in a tip and says, "I'm ready." Are you though? Are you ready? We'll have to talk about that. Darth Plato says, "Happy New Year, Rob." Darth Plato, longtime member of the channel. Thank you for being you, Darth Plato, always elevating the discourse, which I very much appreciate. Wraith X7 says, "Happy New Year, Rob. Have you ever Oh, I read that already. That's the Space Command. Stickle Janus says, "Happy New Year, Rob. Are you a fan of Ichi the Killer?" Oh my God, am I a fan? They're not on my shelf. I have 2 Ichi the Killer action figures that Medicom made that when I saw them at the San Diego Comic-Con, I freaked out. For those of you who haven't seen Ichi the Killer, all I can say is you should watch Ichi the Killer. Takashi Miike's Ichi the Killer. Watch it. I believe it's based on a manga. If you're not in after the opening scene, Ichi the Killer. Actually, here's a great double feature. Here's for those of you who want to see some bonkers Asian cinema from one of the most prolific directors in Japan. Go watch this double bill. Go watch Fudo, F-U-D-O-H. Watch Fudo and Ichi the Killer. I promise you, you'll have a fun afternoon. Although, people that might be sensitive to certain things, mainly sex and violence, and, schoolgirl strippers or anything like that, you might want to steer clear of them. But if you're somebody who wants to embrace some great cinema that is bonkers, Fudo and Ichi the Killer. I mean, Yankees had a huge career, but those two in particular, they go well together. So watch that. Zachary Zarvo says, "Happy New Year, Rob. Thank you for providing consistently entertaining and informative content. I am continuously elevated with each and every show." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Zachary goes on to say, "Question about comics. I'm moving away from single issues and considering absolute editions or omnibuses. Which are your preferences?" Well, I mean, if you can see, it's kind of messy here, but if you can see, how can I point to? I can't wait. I'm looking at the wrong screen. I can't see myself live. So, okay. Here, this level on my bookshelf, all around, I'm surrounded by like 13 Billy bookcases, and this level there's all Marvel omnibuses there, and it's not nearly complete. Not like, by the way, in 2023, I want to throw this out there. One of my favorite YouTubers that I've never had any collaboration with, I've never streamed with, is Gem Mint Collectibles. I love that guy. And he's got like the collection of omnibuses and absolute editions. But I'm a huge fan of absolute editions and omnibuses. But it really depends on what you like. Like, for instance, the Sandman absolute editions are incredible. From Sandman Overture all the way through Death. Those are great if you love those. I am a huge fan of the Swamp Thing absolute editions. And they're kind of controversial because people are like, well, I don't like the recoloring. Well, it's not newsprint, and the recoloring on those books is beautiful. And also Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus, or I have Kirby's Fourth World Omnibuses, and I think over on this shelf, I think. Yeah, no, you can't see it. It's up off that, but Commandee's over here. But by the way, come on, James Gunn. You know you're going to make a Commandee series. It's only a matter of time. I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to place a bet. Here's a bet now with me and fandom. James Gunn is going to figure out a way to make a Commandee streaming series. Want to bet? Anyone want to take that bet? I bet it's going to happen. I think so. James, Commandee. Come on, buddy. You know you want to do it. Because we all want you to do it. Alexander Wilson. Alexander Wilson asks, what did the guy mean by fraudulent creators? Basically, in a nutshell, fraudulent creators are creators that use their clout because they've been legit creators, but now they're not doing the job. They're phoning it in. They're spending too much money, or they're taking too much money for themselves. They are not delivering the goods that they're expected to deliver. And they're not delivering the kind of material. And in this person's position, it's really frustrating to see it happen. And it happens a lot in the entertainment business. Because I'll give you an example. For instance, let's say somebody does what I think is a great... Look, my love of Picard Season 3 grows each time I've seen it. I don't mean to oversell it, because after all, it is what it is. But the proof's in the pudding. Here's the thing. A guy like Terry Matalas, in my estimation, and by the way, one of the great joys of my life in 2022, I didn't even know him. We got into beef. We had beef on Twitter. And he was kind of pissed that I was pissed that he had said, or something to the effect of, oh, we're going to give the TNG crew a great send-off. And I'm like, oh, you mean like All Good Things wasn't? But he was thinking more along the lines of Nemesis, that we should see these characters again. And so Terry Matalas had said that, and that was his goal for Star Trek Picard Season 3. And I was snarky and like, oh, really? Great. And he actually wrote me back. It was really interesting. He wrote me back and he said, hey, man, I liked Free Enterprise. And I was like, oh. And that's appealing to my vanity, of course. But he also, the point is that what he said was, I was a dick, and his retort was to bring up work that I had done that he admired. Elevated the discourse. This is the way to do it. Now, I know people are going to say, he's blocked me, Look, you don't have to suffer fools gladly. If someone's rude to you, block them. That's what the block button's for. There's a lot of people that take advantage of the fact they have access to creators. But here's the thing. I wrote him back, and I said, well, I really love 12 Monkeys, the TV series, because he was the showrunner of that show. And I was very, very happy. And then we started a discourse, and then I led on to him that I had seen Picard Season 3, and he was like, first he didn't believe me, and he was like, what? And then I had to convince him, and then I told him I loved it. And that's how we became friends. And I wasn't just, pulling his chain. I genuinely loved it. Not only did I genuinely love it, but I was shocked it got made. That's one of the things about Picard Season 3 that's shocking. And I ask people who are like, well, the franchise is beyond repair. Give it 40 minutes. You're going to feel the old mojo back. It's going to click. The first episode deals with Picard and Riker going on a mission together. Going on a mission to rescue an old friend. Or they don't know if they know that this person's in trouble. In 40 minutes, I always say 40 minutes. I don't know the exact time, but there's a scene on a bunk bed. By that moment, it clicked for me like, oh my God, the characters feel like themselves. I'm watching Jean-Luc Picard and William Riker. I'm not watching Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart on some not on Nepenthe. I'm not watching that. I'm watching Picard and Riker. And it creeps up on you as you watch. Because I was incredulous. Like Laris is in the beginning, like, we're at Chateau Picard. I'm telling you. It's like Prey. You go into Prey going, is this going to be any good? Fuck yeah, it was. And when you see it's... And I'll tell you something. Here's another prediction. I predict that by the end of Star Trek Picard Episode 4... people are going to be fucking so in. They're going to be by the end of episode 4. As a matter of fact, they should. Terry's actually told me that because they have to release stuff to the critics, they should only release, in my estimation, they should only release the first 4 episodes to critics, and they should put episodes 9 and 10 in the theater. Put it in the theater. Make it an IMAX event. It'll be in March or something. They're going to need IMAX. That's what I think they should do. But anyway, 200 Watt Studio, always another great friend of this channel. 200 Watt Studio says, Happy New Year, Rob. Babylon 5 will be on HBO Max until January 28th. J. Michael Straczynski said it was a licensing issue. Well, you guys, girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, you need to watch it. Watch all of Babylon 5. There's the pilot movie, The Gathering, and then 5 seasons. Check it out. Season 5, they had to finish it early. Just check it out. 200 Watt Studio asks, does Picard Season 3 Dewey, Jean-Luc Picard, or JL? There's no JL. No JL. Rafi is in Season 3. And all I can say is give her a chance. At first, you're going to be like, ugh, give her a chance. She teams up with somebody, and it's pretty cool. Oh, and let me just say one thing to the people. I'm getting slammed on this. Worf is not a pacifist. As Worf says on the show, he's been working on himself. And let me tell you, the whole pacifist thing, like someone's going, get the fuck out. This is what I mean about fandom. You haven't fucking seen it. Okay? If something is shitty, great. By all means, pillory it all you want on the internet. But see it first. Because remember, marketing materials lie. They lie. They lie. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. They lie. Worf is not a pacifist. Worf carries a big fucking Klingon broadsword on his shoulder, a la like Steve Rogers carries a shield. And I don't think it's ruining anything to say he kills a lot of motherfuckers with it. And it's it's awesome. And hey, we know season 1 of Picard was murder track, so expect some gore. It's good stuff. Richard says, would you say 7 of 9 was character accurate in Picard seasons 1 and 2? No. I think they turned 7 of 9 into something for the convenience of the plot. I loved 7 of 9 in Picard season 3. Loved her. Richard goes on to say, in reflection to your top line story, you have to realize that the right side of YouTube politically audits as much as the left. It considers Disney its nemesis and will never give a single win to Disney because it's rooting for its destruction. listen. I agree. I am not here to and listen. I'm a fan. Let me get something out of the way. I listen to people on the right and the left. I have not been a fan. I used to consider myself a classical liberal, a very left-leaning classical liberal. I think a lot of the thought, especially in fan spaces, that come from the left is not good. Now, that doesn't mean I think a lot of the snarky right-wing talking points are reactionary, and they are also not good. I want people to elevate the discourse. We are smarter. Across the board, we are smarter. And the fact is, and I'll say this again, if I want to hang out with YouTube creators or people that I disagree with, or even people that have slammed me on YouTube or whatever, I reserve the right to do so. This does not mean that is a tacit approval of everything they say. I am not my brother's keeper. But you know what? I think that, remember, YouTube is also performative. And while do I agree with what everybody says? No. But that doesn't mean in the real world, I haven't met a lot of people. I've been dealing with people from all sides of the political spectrum my whole life. I was raised Jewish. A lot of people don't know that. When I say I was raised Jewish, I mean I went to Sunday school. I had to learn Hebrew. I was bar mitzvahed. My family built a chapel, the Schoenfeld Gardner Foundation Chapel at Temple de Hirsch Sinai in Seattle. All part of my background. I was raised, however, as a Reformed Jew, but I was raised Jewish. What I appreciated about being raised a Jew is that it was all about intellectual discourse. I was always told to go out and learn. Go out and learn as much as you can, do as much as you can, be as much as you can. And that's something no one ever told me not to read something, not to experience something, not to do or think. I was told to be an intellectual, be inquisitive intellectually, and to go out kind of like V'ger, without the destruction. Learn all that's learnable. Travel out in the universe, son, and learn as much as you can. I understand there's a lot of people on YouTube on either side of the political spectrum, but I think we as people. Look, I'll tell you something interesting. There's been a lot of YouTube videos over the last couple of days. There was a Vice interview show, debate, which I've always enjoyed these, where they gathered people together. They gathered a lot of online creators to talk about feminism. And it was a total shit show, I thought. And it was, unfortunately, we need to learn to be a little bit more dispassionate about our opinions. Like, if you hate somebody because you hate their opinions or hate what they stand for, don't allow your opinions, the way you deliver your opinions, to be infected by the hatred you feel for a creator. I think the way that you've got to learn how, like in a high school debate class, they make you debate points that you don't agree with to learn how to be a good debater. I think that that's part of what we have to do to elevate the discourse. And you know what? We have to listen. You have to listen to people's opposing views, because if they're bad and you think they're bad, figure out ways to interact with those ideas in a way where you can either discredit them or offer your own opinion without coming off like a screaming Mimi or whatever. And I was really disappointed in this Vice. I was expecting a really interesting discussion. It turned into, as so many discussions do between the right and the left, it's what I want, what I feel, my emotions. That doesn't help create. I mean, emotions are the basis, but that doesn't help forge public policy. You can be emotional about something, but you damn well better know your stats. You better know the facts. You better know the figures, because the world is no longer about your feelings. Enough of that. We got to get rid of all that. You can have feelings about something. You hate things. Like, I hate Star Trek Picard. If you want me to 1 and 2, I can tell you. I love Star Trek Picard Season 3. Love it. I hate Star Trek Discovery. I don't hate Star Trek Discovery because of identity politics reasons. I hate Star Trek Discovery because it's bad television and it's not very well written. The actors are doing the best they can, but I don't even believe that the actors on the bridge of the Discovery know what their ranks are. I certainly don't. And I think that's a problem. Don't allow hate to get in the way of cogent discourse. We need cogent discourse. Stickle Janus says, "Hey Rob, do you think that we will ever see a next generation of horror iconic characters, or will we be left with endless remakes? I would love to see a figure such as Art the Clown become a household name." Well, I was about to say Terrifier and Terrifier 2 have given us a new level. I think, I think it's hard in this day and age to create iconic horror characters because it's just a different time. But I think Art the Clown, the thing about especially Terrifier 2, man, that shit, it goes for broke. Look, one of my favorite, because he's not as iconic, but one of my favorite horror characters is in Robert Eggers' The Witch. I'm a huge fan of Black Phillip, the goat. I know he's a goat. He's not a human being. He's a goat that represents Satan. Live deliciously. I love Black Phillip. Black Phillip is the horror hero that we need. It's just that he's not an iconic human character. But I think, we will. And then, here we go, creators. If you want modern iconic horror icons, let's go make them. Why not make them ourselves? John Carpenter, when he did Halloween, was in his, mid-20s? A lot of these filmmakers that create Insidious. Look what James Wan did. Insidious. There you go. Saw and Insidious. James Wan, the guy is a horror factory. He looks like a kid now. He went and created that stuff. That's what we got to do. You want new horror characters? Yeah. Mikey Lito, the great Mikey Lito. By the way, if you have not seen the great documentary, My Name is Polly Murray, I would encourage all of you to watch it and see what one person can do to affect real change. My Name is Polly Murray. I think it's still streaming on Amazon. Check it out. The great Mikey says, "Perception is reality used to be my tagline. Since becoming a YouTuber, it's now watch content, form opinion. Fandom needs to think for themselves." Mikey, that's another part of this manifesto. Yes, you need to think for yourself. And here's a great thing about YouTube, by the way. Watch all manner of creators. Here's the thing. My favorite thing is when somebody starts complaining about a creator on YouTube. That's the first thing I do when I'm done watching their video, is I go watch the creator they're complaining about. And make up your own mind. But really listen to that creator. Because, look, I've often found that there's a middle ground between all of that. People hear buzzwords and they get all caught up, and seldom do I think that there's anyone who is, delivering speeches or I think that there's interesting opinions to be found on both sides of any argument, and YouTube creators especially. When I start hearing this YouTube creator is bad, or this person I'm going to go after them or whatever, I always go watch that creator and see. And I'm not talking about dipping in for a cursory glance. I'm talking about really delving into finding out what that creator's about. 200 Watt Studio says, "I imagine if Worf's pacifism is his tongue-in-cheek way of not killing as much as he used to. Also, the score sold me on season 3. Oh, bro, the score is amazing. Or maybe Worf uses the word pacify as in pacification." Spock said, Dr. McCoy, you need to govern your passions. All I can say is Worf in Picard season 3 is fucking awesome. He's awesome. He is so cool. And all I can do is tell you that Worf, as he says, has been working on himself. Let's leave it at that. Vader voice will live on. Are you and Amy Dallin cool? I loved Collider Heroes. Oh, I adore Amy Dallin. She's incredibly smart. She really knows her stuff. And I found, The Wicked and the Divine, which I have all the card covers for that came out from Image. She turned me on to that. She turned me into a lot of great stuff. I love Amy Dallin. I think she's a tremendous force for good in fan circles. I, for obvious reasons probably, rubbed her the wrong way on more than one occasion. However, to her credit, she told me so. And usually she wasn't wrong. I mean, I can understand why she was, I think I would say to Amy, listen, we got into it once when I was talking about that Hollywood, it was a discussion that was on Twitter, where I was talking about Hollywood at the highest levels for directors was a meritocracy. That you don't get to direct Hollywood features at the A-list studio level unless you're good at your job. They don't give out jobs like that based so much on identity politics because there's too much money at stake. And it was interesting because this is back when people like F. Gary Gray was directing Furious 8, and you have Ryan Coogler and you have Patty Jenkins, and more than ever, there has been really, if you look in the last 10 years, a lot of different people from different backgrounds have made inroads into the Hollywood system. Now, here's the thing. I listen to all this all the time. Now there's a lot of equity and inclusion. My whole thing is this. When Spike Lee made She's Gotta Have It, no one gave him a leg up. The guy went out and raised money and made a movie. And he made a startling movie that no one had really ever seen before. And it was really good. The thing about Hollywood, that it seems obvious but people don't quite get it, is it's really fucking hard to make a great movie. And no one's stopping anybody from making a great movie. This idea that, and by the way, if you make a great movie, Hollywood will come and exploit you. And nowadays, there has never been, we have all kinds of tools to go out and make a Hollywood caliber film right now. It's not expensive. You don't have to develop film anymore. There has never been a better time for a bunch of people to make great movies. You know what? Where are they all? Where are the voices of all kinds of people from all walks of life? Where are they? No one's stopping you from making a movie. And no one's stopping you. And if you've got the talent, of which, like screenplays, 100, you might read 100 screenplays, one's good. And those, the 100-to-1 odds are fairly good. I would say people making movies, it's more like 10,000 to 1, because there's so many things that can go wrong from shot to shot. It's really, 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 really fucking hard. And if you're complaining about not being able to get into the Hollywood system or whatever, it's your own fault. No one's stopping you. You want to get in, you want to be a writer, you want to be a director, go make a movie. Go. Why are you allowing someone else, if you're going to write a script and try and get into the Hollywood system, it's 1,000,000 to 1. The easiest way to get into Hollywood is go make a great movie. This, and especially if you know how to make a great movie for very little money, if you can make a horror movie. I mean, now if you make a great horror movie, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a man, a woman, trans, straight, gay, religious, non-religious, all walks of life. It doesn't matter what kind of human being you are. You want to get into movie making? Go make a movie. And by the way, you can't do it alone. You got to find a team. Find a good team. If you want to direct, find a great writer. You want to write, find a good director. Go out and make your shit. That's one of the things. 2023, make stuff. You want to get into making stuff? Don't bitch and complain about all the gatekeepers that have been put up with for you. There's no gatekeepers. There's nobody other than the fact that an iPhone 14 is expensive. Get 4 of your friends together. You got a 4-camera shoot right there. Figure out how to record great sound. Go make a movie. No one is stopping you. There is no barrier. None. Zero. Go make your movie. You want to get into Hollywood? And a lot of people won't because it's hard. But this idea that anyone's preventing you from doing anything, you've got your own distribution. Now, I'm not saying if this idea is you want to go make Hollywood tentpole pictures, well, that's It's a long and winding road, and good luck to you. But no one's stopping you from making a movie. And I know I have a lot of friends that have gone on and done just that. So up to you. Let's see. Richard. I'm at Alexander Wilson now. Alexander Wilson says, Rob, the movie American Me, was it an irresponsible movie that should never have been made because the people that were killed for it? The background stories about it are so out there that you can't even make them up. Well, the director, too, quit the film. Look, American Me is the Edward James Olmos. It's a movie about, well, Mexican crime, right? It's Edward James Olmos. I just want to make sure, hang on, that I want to say the director of it. So, yeah, it's the Edward James Olmos movie. And, yeah, I mean, and Edward James Olmos produced it. And, yeah, there is, and directed it. There's a lot about it. Look, was it irresponsible? I don't know. I mean, American Me was delving into very real stuff. And I know that if you guys read up, Alexander's right. There's a lot of craziness surrounding the making of American Me. But that was definitely a hornet's nest. And was it irresponsible? I don't know. Was it irresponsible? I mean, is any subject matter irresponsible to make a movie about? I don't know. It's certainly a hot button topic, and it's dangerous. You know, obviously how we've heard a lot about Mexican drug cartels. They're very active. They intercepted, I read yesterday, the day before, they intercepted a box with a bunch of human skulls or something that had been mailed someplace in America. It's rough, but yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Richard, but I think that any movie, there should be no human subject off limits to make a movie about. It really depends how you do it and what position, what direction you're coming from. I mean, look, I own a Serbian film, uncut. I understand what the director is trying to do with that movie, and while it doesn't necessarily touch on any real world things, it's like, should he have made the film? Should I have even bought that movie? I don't know why I bought that movie, to be honest. It's not exactly a pleasant experience I love revisiting, but hey, it's there. That's a good question. I don't know if I should answer or could answer that. Richard sends in a tip and says, is Seven her INTJ self in Picard Season 3? Sorry if you are not familiar with Myers-Briggs. Well, I don't know. I'm familiar with Myers-Briggs, but I'm not really... let's see. Let me look this up. Let's see. Here, now I'll find out. Oh, an architect, okay, is a person with the introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging personality traits. These thoughtful tacticians love... This is interesting. This is okay. So this is a great question, Richard. That's why I love this community. So Richard asks about Seven's INTJ self in Picard Season 3. Sorry if you're not familiar with Myers-Briggs, but if you know her personality in Season 4 of Voyager. This is interesting. So Richard says that on the Myers-Briggs personality, what would you call this, list, is an architect. And INTJ is an architect, and that is a person with an introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging personality trait. These thoughtful tacticians love perfecting the details of life, applying creativity and rationality to everything they do. Their inner world is often a private, complex one. It can be lonely at the top, one of the rarest personality types, and one of the most capable. Architects know this all too well. Rational and quick-witted, architects pride themselves on their ability to think for themselves, not to mention their uncanny knack for seeing right through phoniness and hypocrisy. But because their minds are never at rest, architects may struggle to find people who can keep up with their nonstop analysis of everything around them. Oh, Richard, I would absolutely say that is 7 in season 3 of Picard. But that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, I think you will be pleased. Damn it, Spock says, Happy New Year, Rob. Thanks for all the content and hard work last year. Looking forward to what you bring to us in 2023. Here's hoping Picard Season 3 is the start of a quality Trek revival. Live long and prosper. Thank you. Thank you, damn it, Spock. I think it will be. I think, look, the proof's in the pudding. The real question is, are people going to subscribe to Paramount Plus? Are they going to get numbers? We'll see if they do. I'm not sure. Andy LDN says, Hi, Rob. Did you watch The Peripheral, and what did you think of the adaptation? Similar yet different for me, but it worked. Okay, the adaptation of The Peripheral. The Peripheral is a new Amazon series. It's based on the work of William Gibson. And if you could see, it's right up there, this shelf. I'm a big fan of William Gibson, and I read the book, but I haven't seen the series. I need to sit down. I was going to do it this time, but I was going to binge watch it. But yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I hope it's good. It looks good to me. But it's a pretty wacky book. So in terms of what happens in it, and that's why I really want to watch it. And I love Chloe Grace Moretz. So I have not watched it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Ron C. with a very generous $50 super chat. Ron, thank you for starting out my New Year's right. Rob, Happy New Year. I've been watching your channel since your beginnings. You talk about editing, color, and money. Plus, you host the Designing Hollywood podcast. I love it, and it gives me ideas for my screenplay. You're a good man in my book, my personal opinion. Well, thank you, Ron C. I wish more people would watch the Designing Hollywood podcast. And the last one, Deborah Scott. I mean, she was the costume designer on Back to the Future. You know, she did Heat, Titanic, Avatar, and Avatar: The Way of Water. So check that out. Which I think it's great. Now here's a letter I wanted to read. I thought this was a good letter, and it kind of fits in. This is how I'm going to end this show, because it kind of fits in with the whole theme of this. This comes from Brian Forno. Hey, Rob. First time, long time. Laugh out loud. It's a radio reference, but that means first time listener, or long time listener, first time caller, but it means viewer, whatever. It's a great radio reference. Hey, Rob. First time, long time. Laugh out loud. It's a radio reference, but I've always wanted to say it. Anyway, writing this to say thanks for the countless hours of entertainment and education you provide us fans, and for sharing so much of yourself, and for being so transparent with your audience. We definitely park our shuttles in the same shuttle bay, as you love to say. I've been a long-time Star Trek fan, and I can boil down the reason why to one simple thing. Gene Roddenberry created a future I would actually want to live in. Well, let me tell you, that is perhaps, Brian, the simplest reason I can say that Star Trek has been successful for 57 years. And I would say this, the future that has been portrayed in Star Trek up till now, in terms of the modern age, was not that future. But Star Trek Picard Season 3, hanging out with those folks, they changed it around for me. Gene Roddenberry created a future I would actually want to live in. They highlighted and put importance on intelligence and emotional intelligence. They created a society that's fair and just and rarely had to resort to physical violence. I'm also a comic book lover. Well, graphic novel lover, if I'm being honest. I just prefer the epic stories graphic novels tend to tell over the single-issue comic books. I became a fan later in life, though I've always been interested. What finally got me to pick up my first graphic novel, which was Legion of Superheroes, The Great Darkness Saga Deluxe Edition, right over there, by the way, was my youngest daughter. She wasn't a huge fan of reading at a young age, and it was affecting her performance in school. So I thought maybe reading comic books would be a great way to get her more interested in reading. And you know what? It actually worked. It worked like a fucking charm, laugh out loud. We started to visit the comic book shop together on a regular basis. she began reading more and became more interested in different genres of comic books like manga. We started going to comic book conventions together and even got into Hall H at Comic-Con one year. We've since gone as far as Seattle, your hometown, for their comic convention to do the Avengers meet and greet with Chris Evans. Of course, well, fast forward a little, and now she's an amazing artist and is attending her first year at university and was accepted into their prestigious art program. Rob, the comic book genre clearly has a special place in my heart, along with Star Trek. And to hear you speak so fondly of both makes me smile. So thank you again, Rob. And if you're wondering who my favorite superhero is, well, who else but the one and only Superman? Your loyal fan, Brian. Well, Brian, I mean, that says it all. First of all, familial bonding and helping a child find their own imagination connoisseurship. That's what it's all about. I think that's what we're all here for. By the way, Alexander Wilson did send in a tip and say, American Me was about the founding of the Mexican Mafia. The problem was that the movie portrayed the founder as being sexually assaulted in prison, which didn't happen in real life. 10 people were killed because of it in brutal fashion. Yes, that is absolutely true. I mean, it's a hard... when you take liberties with storytelling of real, actual events, that's... look, I believe that if you're going to detail real events, it's important to keep as close to those real events as possible. And when you're dealing with something like the Mexican Mafia, I mean, as people know, we're on this channel big fans of the movie Blood In, Blood Out. That was based on the work of Chicano poet Jimmy Baca. And we did a whole, over on the Midnight's Edge channel, we did a whole reunion of the cast of Blood In, Blood Out. And I think it's important that you be, I mean, obviously, there was a reason why I think that was a poor choice in that movie, but there was a reason why it upset people. And I can completely understand that. And maybe it shouldn't have been done. But I do think American Me is quite a good film. And on that note, first of all, I want to, hey, I can't wait. Once again, 2023, where we're going, what we're going to see, where it's all going to go, which is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to spending it now and doing a lot more, as I said early, on this channel, on the John Campea channel, on YouTube in general, and to see what all of the creators of 2023 decide to do. And yes, I'm going to add colored lights to my background. I got to keep up with the times, man. Got to keep up with the times. And whining about movies will come back and all those things. I promise. And on that note, I want to say, first of all, thank you for everybody for supporting this channel. A very happy new year to everyone. 2023, hey, all we can do is, the future is where we're going to spend the rest of our lives. I want to thank Lord Toth and Louise X. Sparrow and Tom Jr. Jackson for continuing to be great moderators. And Louise actually did a really interesting video on Star Trek. And I don't agree with it entirely, and I want to talk to her about it, but it's a good video. And so check that out. I think I'll put it out on Twitter. Anyway, on that note, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. Now, one last thing. Why did I choose to use 2010 as a thumbnail on this, the opening message of 2023? I could not believe, while watching Glass Onion, that Benoit Blanc, that Rian Johnson had Benoit Blanc make a reference to 2010, the year we make contact, which is a film that obviously it's not like Kubrick's original, but it's a great space adventure. And God damn it, Warner Brothers, you own this movie. It's an MGM film, and when you stop bogarting MGM's legacy and putting it front and center as your own, which you should say, you own these great MGM movies, but you did not make them. Please give me 2010 in 4K. And while you're at it, could you give me Douglas Trumbull's Brainstorm and also Robert Zemeckis' Contact on 4K? Thanks. I'd really appreciate that. I really would. And on that note, we will see you probably tomorrow, at least on the John Campea Show.